everyone, my name is Ada, and this is my walk away story. The story of me walking away from Democratic Party. This is the first time I'm ever doing something like this, but I've had this need to want to say everything that I'm about to say for the longest time, and it's really significant because I'm recording this on September 29th, 2020, the night of the first presidential debate between President Trump and Democratic candidate Joe Biden. This is such a pivotal moment in our history, and I think it's really important for everyone's voice to be heard, but especially conservative voices who have for so long been really oppressed and looked down upon by mainstream media and society today. I wanted to share this because I've recently, in the last few years, been through a lot, and those experiences that I went through have opened my eyes to what the Democratic Party really is and has made me leave completely. So I actually was born and raised in New York City. I went to public school my entire life. My parents are actually immigrants. They fled communist China, actually, came here with nothing in their pockets, worked 3 jobs, night and day, in order to pay for their kids to eat and go to school. Education was a huge part of my childhood. It was part of our culture, and family was, and the family unit sticking together was on another part. And those things, looking as a kid, you look at those things as something that's being really annoying or really overbearing. But looking at it now as an adult, you realize that those were values that really contributed to who I am as a person today, and I'm really grateful for those things that they've instilled. They instilled the values of hard work, of a strong family unit, of being able to be productive and having rewards in life that come after working really hard, having delayed gratification, being humble, and never complaining, never making yourself a victim, right? And so those things have been really pivotal to my journey. But at the same time, when I was younger, I had those things happen and I didn't realize how important they were. And I thought, as a kid, I thought they were just really annoying. And I ended up just being surrounded by other liberal folks in New York City, of course, which is one of the most liberal cities you could possibly be in the country. And I was brainwashed into basically thinking that New York City is the center of the world, that all the other states in the union don't matter. So there's basically the states between California and New York, that whole section are just flyover states. They're irrelevant. The people there are stupid, or just all farmers. And then everyone in the city is, we just live in our ivory towers, and everyone in the city is just smart and educated, and we're the progressive ones. And so I was brainwashed into thinking that was the case. And so every type of mentality and thoughts and opinions that happened in New York, I absorbed them as my own. Even ones looking back on it, I realized that were hateful. So I went through public school, and then I ended up going to a private university, and how universities are brainwashing a lot of our kids these days. That's a whole different story, but also looking back at it now, I'm grateful for my experience, but there's a lot of things that went wrong in that sense with the culture there. And then after school, I actually moved to San Francisco for the last, where I was there for the last 3 years. And I recently left because of the left. So I moved to San Francisco thinking that I would be in the epitome of a liberal city and a liberal state, and I would finally be with my people. I would finally be part of this culture that I've always seen on TV and on the media. And I went and I discovered that all of these leftist policies that we were preaching and talking about in New York City were actually a failure, and were actually hurting the people that it's claiming to help. And it's creating way more pain and poverty in our world today. I went to San Francisco to do social work, and so as you can imagine, I had the background, the behind the scenes of what it's like to have these extreme democratic socialist type policies, um, and how it really affects people. So I was working with women in rehab who were coming out of addiction, coming out of jail, and coming off the streets for addictions. Now, of course, addictions is a really sad and really complex situation, and I genuinely hope that we can find a bipartisan way to find a solution for all those people that have been affected. But a lot of these women were, after they finished their rehab, they were coddled to an extent where they basically were used to not becoming productive citizens, being able to produce or contribute back to society. So, for one example, there was this woman I talked to who was part of the program who was there for a year, and she was 2 years out and 2 years sober, which is amazing, great for her. Um, but then I started talking to her about, what are your plans now? Like, what would you like to do? And let me help you get to where you want to go. And for the last 2 years, she was living in a home provided by the city, from our taxes. And she was like, I said, hey, why don't you look for a job? I'd love to help you, find something. There's a couple, entry level roles that are out there, and it'd be really great to start saving up money for you to be a little bit more financially independent. And she looked at me and she's like, no, I don't want to work. Because she was just so used to getting things for free. There was also this woman I talked to who she said, oh, I'm going to finish this program in 3 months, and then after I finish this program in 3 months, I'm going to get this free housing, free Section 8 housing. I'm going to get my free food vouchers. I'm going to get free education and childcare for my school, free Medicare through the city, and finally I'll get my free Obama phone, and and then I'll be set for life. And that honestly really broke my heart, because she's equating the success of her life to how much free stuff she can get. And to me, that's just a really messed up perspective on how to live life and how to be happy. You're just going to keep getting things and keep getting these entitlements, but not really working for yourself, or at least seeing the value of that, or understanding like where this actually is coming from. It's coming from my tax money. People that are truly capable of working. And again, I know addictions are a very complex thing, but they also were physically able. If we can find a bipartisan approach to really help these people get back on their feet, and not just giving them free stuff and entitlements and welfare, which is really prevalent in the California system, that would be way more effective. But unfortunately, I think all of the policies that have been passed in California have done this harm and have created this culture. And I don't think, unfortunately, there's no turning back from that. These are adults already that have been living their whole life in this system, and it's keeping them down instead of giving them the financial freedom and empowerment that they need to live a happy, healthy life. So that things like that really broke my heart. Um, I would say also from my experience in San Francisco, working in the social work area, I volunteered for some schools. I tutored some kids and taught some enrichment classes for some extra cash. Plus, when you work in social work, there's like no money. So I was making some extra cash. And one day I was in a high school in the city, really, really well off. These people are, this is a private high school that costs like $45,000 a year. So, true, granted that a lot of the people there probably have some money. Some people are on scholarships. Some kids have grants and stuff, so that's great. But like for the most part, a lot of these kids have some money, like a lot of money. Okay, so and this is like a high school. So in a freshman class, these 14-year-olds, the teacher was giving out pamphlets about how to protest, like how to protest properly and not get arrested, or like knowing your rights when police go to your protest. Like, don't talk to the police. You have every right to not say your information. Bring a mask, bring mace, bring an emergency contact number in your bag. Seeing that for 13 and 14-year-olds, I mean, to me, that was really disturbing. Just the fact that they're pushing this agenda onto our children so young, and not giving them at least the ability to make their own decisions about what is right and wrong. Like, they're just telling them, hey, go out and protest. But do they even know what they're protesting? Or do they even know all the facts and details about that? It was really disturbing. So after social work, I actually worked in tech in Silicon Valley, San Francisco. Okay, so for a lot of people that are conservatives and Republicans, there's a whole conversation about how Silicon Valley um, is really suppressing the voices of conservative speakers, and honestly, that is really true. Um, there wasn't a day I was there where I felt like I was able to be myself and fully express my opinions. A lot of people were just under this following this liberal agenda and not letting other voices be heard. And that was really disappointing, especially in such a what they claim is to be such a progressive and exciting place full of diverse ideas and opinions. There was so much political correctness there. It honestly drove me crazy, and I'm not working there anymore, and I'm really glad. It just really made me, not my particular company. I just want to put that out there because I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. But I'm just saying the culture of the Silicon Valley tech world in general. It's just really disappointing what it has turned into, in that it's suppressing a lot of voices and different opinions and putting the blame on conservative speakers instead of allowing them to express themselves and have freedom of speech. The other thing I also wanted to talk about was just like my own personal journey with my faith, and that also has been a real big reason why I left the left. Recently, in the last few years, have been really reconnecting with my belief in Jesus and in God, and I'm a proud Christian, and I have these values and morals within myself now that I would not have had a few years ago. And so in terms of my faith journey, I'm really glad that I am where I am. But as I continue down my faith journey, I realized that the the ways that the Democratic Party is thinking is extremely anti-Christian. And in fact, a lot of the things that they want to do involve taking away God in our society, as well as completely backing away from the Judeo-Christian beliefs that this country was founded on. Um, So, for example, this whole idea of every single person being oppressed in some way, except if you're a white male, then you are at the top of the food chain, but everyone else is oppressed in some way. So for me, I'm a woman, so I'm oppressed by males, but I'm Asian, so I'm gonna rank higher than like a African American or Latino person, but I'm a child of immigrants, and I'm first in my first generation, so maybe I get a little bit of a push in terms of like my oppression scale. It's just absurd, like this having these oppression Olympics. Um, and comparing and saying like you can't have an opinion because you're less oppressed than me. even though you don't know my story, you don't know everything I've been through, and I don't know your story, but you're going to judge me just based off how I look or my external identity. To me, that is actual discrimination. That is discrimination. On a faith-based perspective, Jesus died on the cross for us to be free, and so if we not for us to be, he died on the cross for us to be free, not to be a victim. So if we go through life just being victims, then then Jesus' sacrifice was not worth it, and obviously we want it to be worth it. And so it I noticed that a lot of the Democrat policies is basically saying, you are oppressed because you are from this group. And because of that, we're going to keep lowering the level for you, lowering the bar for you, not setting high enough expectations, because you're not going to get those expectations anyway because you are this type of person. And we're going to keep giving you all of these free things or incentives or programs and just throw them at you just so that you can compete against the white man, because you can't reach them, you can't reach their level. And but if you keep telling someone that they're oppressed and you're never going to be good enough because of the oppressor, and then you keep bending the circumstances and the rules and the requirements just so that they can reach this level, but they're never good enough to get there on their own, then this person is never going to succeed on their own. They're always going to go through life looking for the next incentive or the next thing for them to hold on to so that they can become better rather than relying on themselves. And so to me, that was just really anti-Christ, because you are automatically judging these people, and you're not letting them work to their fullest potential. It's an insult to the human potential by just continuing to say that people are oppressed or that you are a victim. So to me, that was just really disturbing, just seeing all of this unfold. And then finally, I would say is just the culture that the leftists have created. I really saw this in San Francisco and even here in New York City, both cities being very liberal, but I saw how the liberal policies destroyed San Francisco. There's poop and needles on the floor. And, I'm not exaggerating. People talk about this in the news all the time. It's true. There's poop and needles on the floor. There are homeless people, camped all out in downtown. And the thing is, people have accepted this. This is not an acceptable thing. People have become so, they're ignoring it. They just say it's every part of everyday life. And it just blows my mind that people will continue to vote for policies that keep people in poverty like this, that keep people on the streets and keep these streets dirty. We're paying, in California, the income state tax is the highest in the country. Where's that money going? Okay, it's going into the pockets of the Democrat politicians. It's not going to infrastructure. It's not going to build mental institutions for the genuinely mentally ill people that are just thrown out into the streets. Okay, it's not being put towards fixing the homeless problem, fixing the drug problem, enforcing the police so that they can get all of these druggies and drug lords off the streets. Instead, it's being used for this bullet train that actually never happened, and this Ferris wheel in Golden Gate Park that got built halfway and then got shut down. It's absurd. This money and all these resources that we're putting into these policies, that these Democrat policies, they're not going anywhere. And I think it's really time for us to wake up. People have become a culture where they're okay with walking past this pain and these terrible scenes, I don't understand why. If if you genuinely care, you Democrats, they like to call themselves the party of people that care. That's why they want to vote for all these socialist policies that distribute everything, distribute the wealth to every single person and give people things for free. But at the same time, their hearts are so hardened where they walk past all of these homeless and needles and poop on the street that their own policies have caused. You're not going to do or say anything about it. You're just going to ignore it. You're going to keep voting for the same policies that started this in the first place. It doesn't make sense to me. And I genuinely pray that people on the left can see the error of their ways, or at least begin to be open to hearing the voices of conservatives who could probably offer a solution to a lot of those problems for your cities. Finally, oh, I know I said finally 5 times, but this is one more thing I want to mention is just like the culture. Obviously, we know all the riots that have been happening, and the same could be said here in New York City. New York City actually just got labeled as, I forget the official term. I think it's like a terror. No, not terrorist. Well, it's kind of like a terrorist thing, but um, I forget what it's called. If you know, please leave a comment. But it was Seattle, Portland, and New York City, where the three cities for like domestic, Antifa, all the riots and domestic terrorism. There's like an official term for that. So this once great city that I was born and raised in for the last 20 plus years has now turned into basically a third world country, which is really crazy to think about within the last few years. And people have accepted this. People have accepted the fact it's okay to burn down small businesses, most of them minority and immigrant owned. A lot of them owned by my friends and by people I know and my neighbors who now lost their entire livelihood. And then the response to that is, oh well, they have insurance. No, they don't. They have about a few $100,000 of lost of lost money, and they're already suffering because of the shutdowns from COVID. That is completely heartless to just brush that off completely as a response to an unfortunate police shooting. Now, the whole police brutality thing is another thing that I can make another video on. But the point is that violence is not the answer. To violence, basically. Like if you look at history, like in the I believe it was in Birmingham with Rosa Parks, and she, refused to get off the front seat of the bus, and how they protested was through a free market. It was through capitalism. It was through not giving businesses to the bus. And all the African Americans started carpooling or walking instead. And so, because the bus companies had suffered so financially, that's when the law finally changed for them to allow both black and white people equally in different on the same parts of the bus. And so that's just an example of how actual protests can be done without hurting innocent people and destroying the lives of innocent bystanders or murdering. A lot of peaceful protests are riots and murders. But the leftist culture has accepted this as okay, as a proper excuse to let out their feelings. It's concerning. I really pray that they can see the error of their ways, and they can see that that is not the proper way to go about things. The proper way is for all of us to listen to each other, and have an open mind and an open heart to bring God back into our society, and into our culture, and to have a free market. I mean, ideally, that would be the ideal situation. Anyways, I'm ranting now. There's a lot of reasons, but I hope I was able to summarize this. It's a long video, but I hope I was able to express my feelings in the best way that I could, as to why I'm leaving the left. And with that being said, this year, 2020 will be the first year that I'll be voting for a Republican and I will be voting for Trump. Um, I did vote for Hillary Clinton in 2016, and again, that was why the reason why is because I thought that's what I had to do. You know, as a East Coaster, as a woman, and because I was under the impression that Trump was this racist, sexist person. I mean, listen, there are definitely clips of him where he might have pretty brash responses, but in life, not everyone's going to be nice. Like, that's just the way life is. At the end of the day, as long as he gets the work done and gets things accomplished, that's all that matters to me. And so far, from what I've seen with the numbers and what he's been able to produce, it looks like he's been doing that. And so this year I have registered as a Republican and I will be voting in the elections. And I really hope and pray that we can all come together to have a bipartisan approach to a lot of these issues. And at the end of the day, just be Americans and love this country, and love this country that has given so much to me, to you, to my parents who literally came here with nothing and worked 3 jobs and made a life out of themselves, made a life for themselves and for their family. So I hope that we can just really find peace with each other. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, and peace. Thank you.